Welcome to the Millionaire University Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Gearin, with you today. And on this edition of the MU Pod, I'm joined by Alex Neist. He's the founder of Hostage Tape. It's the largest mouth tape brand in the world. And Alex has a pretty cool story. I'm going to let him dive into that here in a minute. But first of all, Alex, man, welcome to the show.
Dude, it's great to be here. I love getting on podcasts like this, talking shop, talking to people who are early stage entrepreneurs, and they want to hear from people like us who have actually done it, scaled it, and they can learn something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm super pumped. And I'm also super pumped because I had no clue that mouth tape was a thing. And then when you said, well, we're the largest mouth tape brand in the world, I thought to myself, well, dang, there's something here. So I'm super excited to have you here. Before we jump in and talk nuts and bolts about your business, like you said, we're going to top shop as if we're just sitting down to lunch and I'm picking your brain about your business. But let's hear about your origin story. You know, one cool part I already know about you is you were a former Arena League football quarterback. So that's really awesome. So tell us how you got there.
Yeah, so my first love was football. I grew up a kid. So I'll never forget this. I went to a birthday party when I was, 10 or 11 years old. And at this birthday party, and this was back in the 80s, okay? So I go to this birthday party, and they give a pack of Topps football cards to all the kids. I get this pack of Topps, and I didn't play football at the time, but I pull this pack of cards out, and I go through them, and the last card was in fact, I've got the card right over here.
Oh, nice.
Here, I pulled out this card. Now, people, if you're listening, you can't see it, but it is a Joe Montana Topps football card. I pulled this card out, and everybody at the table went, oh my God, you got a Joe Montana card. He's the best quarterback in the league. And in that moment, I went, whoa, I want that. I don't know why, but I gravitated towards now dedicating the next 20 years of my life to be the best quarterback that I could be. My dad never thought that I was going to be a quarterback, a football player, because my dad was a gymnast. He was actually on the 69 national championship team for University of Iowa. He was on the rings, and not a very big guy. So he always thought, well, you're never going to be that big. There's no way you're going to be able to play football. Maybe you'll be a wrestler or something, being from Minnesota. You know, wrestling's a big thing in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. But I gravitated towards that, and then I went on, and I was the kind of guy who nobody ever thought I was going to do it. But I was that underdog. I went on, became the starter for my high school team. Nobody thought I was going to be the guy. It was going to be this other guy. But I said, no, I'm going to be the guy, right? And so I think that attitude, every level, was really then what made me into this entrepreneur that I am. It was the underdog of having a chip on my shoulder, always having confidence in myself, and then going out there and proving everybody wrong, right, at every level. And then I went on and I played college football. I started out at the University of Minnesota, was a Golden Gopher. And then I transferred to a small school because I wasn't getting playing time. And then I went on, I graduated, and I knew I could play professional. Much like Kurt Warner, the great story of Kurt Warner was he knew he could play, but he only played 1 year in college. And then he ended up becoming this Cinderella story, the greatest Cinderella story of all time.
He was stocking grocery shelves.
He was stocking grocery in Cedar Rapids, Iowa at Hy-Vee. And Jim Foster, the founder of the Arena Football League, came to him and said, Kurt, I want you to be my guy for the Iowa Barnstormers in this new league I'm starting. And Kurt laughed at him and said, this is a joke. Why would I waste my time? But then Kurt thought, and he went, wait a minute. This is a chance for me to keep playing. It's a chance for me to get tape. This is my only opportunity, because he blew his opportunity with Green Bay. He went to Green Bay, got a chance to go in and play practice, and he was like, I'm not ready. So they're like, okay, and then they cut him. You know, and then he famously started playing arena football, and then he built his way back up, went to the Rams, and the rest is history. So that was my mentality too. And I made it to the Arena Football League and played 5-6 years. I met my wife 2006 playing for the Spokane Shock. That was probably one of the most amazing, fun years of my life. You run out of the tunnel, there's 25,000 people. But I knew at the tail end of my career that I wasn't going to make it to the NFL, so I was going to start a business. And I started a business And I ran that business for about 16 years. I bootstrapped it. And over the course of those
What kind
16 years of running this first business, I failed over and over and over again. And that's where I got all my chops as an entrepreneur. And I really learned all the things not to do, of how to then take that the second time around. Because for most people looking and doing a Google search on me or on Hostage Tip, you might go, man, these guys blew up overnight. Holy crap, they're everywhere. They're huge. But I call this my 16-year overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
It took me 16 years to get to here because of everything I learned the first time around. So now I know what to do. It's just like when you watch TV, you watch any athlete, you watch Tom Brady when he played, you go, or even Pat Mahomes, we'll use that. You watch Pat Mahomes on TV and you're like, man, that guy he makes it look easy. He makes it look easy because he's got a million reps doing all of those things. So now he goes out there every Sunday because of all the times he failed, all the hours he put in to get to that point where he makes it look easy. And so that's how I equate, being an entrepreneur and the level that I've gotten to. It's all those reps, man. The daily reps, the daily grind of putting everything in that a lot of times people don't think about. So people listen to this, have these illusions of grandeur sometimes of, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It looks awesome. It looks like so much fun, but they don't realize that it's like the life of being an athlete. You go to practice every single day. You do the same thing every single day. It's a daily grind, day in, day out, right? And you got to stay consistent. You got to keep doing it. And then if you're on the right path and you continue to learn and you continue to tweak and get better every day, then you can build a business that actually can stand the test of time. And so, okay, back to the story. So I had this business, it was a software business, a SaaS company. It was actually in sports video analytics. We would take sports video. I pioneered this concept of taking sports video and breaking it down and adding data to it so coaches could use it. Another company that most of us all know is Huddle.com. I was the competitor to Huddle that I pioneered that whole concept of breaking video down for them that they then later took and adapted to much of what they do for high school and youth and amateur now. So
okay.
I sold that. And it was at that point where I was really hitting a low point in my life where I was bottoming out in my health. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't the athlete that I used to be. You kind of lose that motivation. You can relate to that, right? When you're done playing and you transition into being a dad, being a husband, being all these other things, it's a shock. It's a huge change and you don't know how to make that transition. So I struggled with that. Yep. And I struggled with taking care of myself. I wasn't sleeping very good. And my wife and I weren't having a very good relationship because I snored so bad. It pushed my wife out of the bedroom for years. And then that created this rift in the relationship. So then it was at that moment I knew, okay, I call it my Jocko moment of extreme accountability. I need to take extreme accountability for what I need to do to improve and accept everything as my fault. So how do I get better? And I started with my sleep. So I go down this rabbit hole of figuring out how do I stop snoring? Because most of us men, we get to this middle age. I'm 45. We get to this middle age of life and we don't go to the doctor, especially in this day and age. Like nobody has confidence in, going to doctors anymore. So I didn't want to go to a doctor. I didn't want to get a sleep study. I didn't really want to do anything. It's like, I'll just figure it out on my own. And you go to Amazon and you type in, how do you stop snoring? Right. All these different things pop up and nothing worked. I tried all these different things. I tried a mouth guard, you try sleeping in different positions and nothing just really kind of seemed to hit and land. And then I kept going. This is where then you go past the second and third page of Google and you go into like the seventh and eighth page, right? You'll really dive in. And
where
then
all the
I discovered it.
hidden.
I discovered this book. You can't see it, but this book, Breath by James Nestor. And there was an excerpt in the book where he talks about how he was going to do this experiment. They go to Stanford Medical Center and they wanted to measure what would happen if we plugged our nose for 10 days and we only breathed through our mouth. So when that happened, they snored like crazy. They had sleep apnea, oxygen levels in their blood plummeted through the floor. And then after the 10 days, they unplugged their nose. They taped their mouths so they would only breathe through their nose when they slept. And what do you think happened after a day? Everything went away.
Yeah.
So for me, this light bulb went off on my head and I went, hold on. You mean to tell me that it could just simply be the fact that I'm mouth breathing? Like that's it? And being an athlete, like you and I were, did you ever have a coach say, hey, Brian, you need to stop keeping your mouth open when you're running around the bases or you're running here doing that. Keep your mouth shut, focus on nasal breathing. Did any coach ever tell you that?
Oh, yeah, for
you
sure.
Did? Okay.
They were always
I
saying
didn't.
through the nose, out the mouth.
Yeah. Well, I never had a coach ever emphasize proper breathing. And it's probably because I was a football player or a bunch of grunts, right?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I think it was my 4th grade PE teacher that taught us how to breathe while running.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I remembered it. And she said through the nose, out the mouth.
I don't know if I agree with that. I got lucky. But part of you got part of it right. At least the fact that when you're breathing in through your nose, like that's a big part of it. Where now you're filtering the air, you're warming the air, and it can get into your lungs much, much better. I would disagree with breathing out the mouth, but we could talk about that later. Yeah. So I go down that rabbit hole of, oh my God, mouth tape. So then I go on Amazon and I order. At the time, this was 6 years ago. Mouth tape was not what it is today, for obvious reasons. We're the largest brand in the world, and I've spent all the money on marketing that has gotten the awareness to where it is, to where then it exploded. And there was this viral moment that everybody saw a couple of weeks ago that you saw us front and center in. And
a couple of weeks ago.
It was like a week ago. Yeah, it was last.
What was it? Are you building
Ashton,
up to that?
the morning routine, Ashton Hall.
Uh-huh.
The guy, he gets up, takes off the mouth tape, Saratoga water. Okay. The mouth tape.
Yeah.
That was us.
It was. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
okay, that's pretty awesome.
So most people who they know mouth tape or they know us, they go, that's hostage tape, right? And so you didn't see the brand in the videos, but for most people, they put two and two together and go, oh, mouth tape. That looks just like hostage tape. So so I go down that rabbit hole of mouth tape and I get it. And that night, the first thing that goes to your head when you mouth tape is you go, wait a minute. What if my nose gets stuffy? Like, am I going to not wake up? Am I going to die if something happens here? That's a perfectly normal reaction that everybody has. Even I had it. Okay. But I went, I'll be fine. Okay. So tape my mouth. I go to bed. And when I woke up the next day, I couldn't believe how I felt. I felt like a new man. I felt like I'd unlocked this cheat code, like the old Nintendo Konami cheat code, up, down, left, right. It was like I found that in life. And in that moment, I knew that my life was going to be different. And then
is that because you had like an incredible night of sleep?
Yeah.
Because you finally taped your mouth?
So I woke up with this newfound amount of energy that I'd never felt before, or at least I hadn't felt in 20 years. Right?
Wow.
I felt rested. I felt like I had an amazing night's sleep. I felt different. Right? And I knew in that moment that what I had just discovered was life-changing. And it was so simple, just taping your mouth shut. And so the entrepreneur in me went, okay, there's an opportunity here, right? Mm-hmm. And I would say to everybody out there listening, this is where you start. When you want to build something, you want to build a business, start with a problem. And that was the genius of what I discovered was I just stumbled into solving one of the biggest problems that people have. How do you get better sleep? We all sleep at night. Most of us get terrible sleep. And I stumbled into that. And so I got lucky of trying to solve now this problem. And then I stumbled into well, wait a minute. Do I actually have something here? So everybody starting a business then has a moment of, wait, is somebody else out there doing this? Like, is there a moat here? Can I actually build something? Can I protect it? Can I actually make enough money? And then that's where most people quit because they're afraid. They don't want to take the leap. They don't want to take the jump. And I was inspired by two things. One, at the time, I started to get into Liquid Death. And I loved what Mike did with Liquid Death, Mike, the founder. They took this brand to the biggest commodity on the planet. Water is one of the biggest commodities on the planet. How do you take water and make a $1 billion company out of it the way he did so fast? Branding, right? And a story. Mm-hmm. So that paired with, I was really getting into podcasts at the time because I was working on myself, right? If there's anything I would say to people out there, find a couple of really good podcasts that you can listen to where you're listening to people talk about entrepreneurship. You're listening to people talking about, working on yourself, getting better, mindset, all of those types of things. And I was really into that. And I heard an interview with, I think it was Moise Ali. Moise Ali famously was the founder of Native Deodorant. And he talked about this moment where you go down the aisles of Target and let's just say you see a giant wall of white. There's an opportunity there. And the opportunity is to create a product that stands out, that's different. And I went, okay, I get it. I have to create a brand that has a story that people can emotionally attach to and inspire people. And so then Hostage Tape was born. And most people listening to this are probably thinking, you named it Hostage Tape? Like, what were you thinking? That sounds like marketing, right? That's what it sounds like. Yeah. And most people think it's crazy. And I'll explain why I did it. So again, I was inspired by Liquid Death, this idea of creating a polarizing brand and a polarizing name that was going to get your attention. Because in this day and age, attention is the currency. So I understood that if I was going to scale this brand, I was going to scale it doing Facebook ads, right? Meta ads. And there's so many people out there trying to now start businesses. Shopify has democratized the ability, and Amazon has democratized the ability to be able to start a brand nowadays. It's way easier than it used to be 5-10 years ago. And so you have to get people's attention. So I knew that, okay, this brand is what's going to get people's attention. It's going to reel them in. It's going to stop the scroll. But there's also a story behind it, right? There's an authentic narrative there that I knew I could reel people in. And it was this idea that, so Hostage Tape, right? Yes, you do kind of look like a hostage when you wear it. That's the obvious. But on the flip side of it, we're tapping into this emotion people feel. People feel held hostage by poor sleep or their partner, and they don't know what to do. So don't let bad sleep hold you hostage, was the idea. Okay.
There you go.
And I knew you're going to scroll on Instagram and see Hostage Tape, and you're going to go, holy crap, seriously? And I'm going to get a reaction, and you're never going to forget it. And it's like the 95-5 rule, right? I think the former Chubby's founder talks about this concept quite a bit. And the 95-5 rule basically says, look, 95% of people are not in market to buy your product at any given time when they see your ad. The other 5% probably are. But when those 95% of people finally come in market, what do they buy? They buy the brand they remember. Mm-hmm. So when those 95% of people are in market to finally buy mouth tape because they believe that mouth tape isn't a scam and it's not a fad, that's actually real, they're going to remember Hostage Tape because nobody ever forgets Hostage Tape. Nobody forgets it. So then they go and they buy Hostage Tape. And so built that brand, launched it. 3 years later, we're now the biggest mouth tape brand in the world. You see Joe Rogan talks about, in fact, he just talked about it twice in a week on a podcast talking about how he uses
Really?
hostage tape and his wife uses it. And then the Ashton Hall viral craze that just happened, right? Where he's wearing mouth tape. That happened. Everybody saw it and went, oh my God, he's wearing hostage tape. Whether it was hostage tape or not doesn't matter because it looks just like it. And everybody thought it was. And now we're here. So.
Wow. So there was obviously a bit of a mouth tape market before you. Was it competitive? Was it just, a bunch of average Joes and you saw that opportunity and you're like, this could be way better. We got to get in on this.
So the market was there. It was really small. So there was a brand. Like there's actually two ways to look at it. Certainly 3M. Okay. 3M is the largest manufacturer of just general adhesive tape, right? So they kind of own the market of like, you could just go on Amazon and buy a 3M surgical tape. And that's what a lot of people do. It's okay. It worked for some people. It's not very comfortable. Doesn't work great for men with facial hair, right? It doesn't work great for all the reasons I created hostage tape. Because most people right now are probably thinking, well, what does it matter? Why couldn't I just use 3M surgical tape or Scotch tape or duct tape, right? There's a whole bunch of reasons. But so there's certainly the elephant in the room. But does 3M surgical tape inspire you to go on and buy it or go down to Walgreens and buy it? Not really.
Nah.
There's not a story there. There's not an inspiring story that says, hey, Brian, this is why you should buy this to solve this problem for you. Because 3M doesn't care about that. That's not their game. So there was a brand, but the product that they actually had was really crappy. Just wasn't very good. It wasn't very good execution on the actual product. And the branding was just horrible. It was horrendous. It was a doctor, or I think it was two doctors who had tried doing this, and they were on Shark Tank. I think they almost got a deal, but it didn't. I think it fell through. And they just didn't. They did a poor job of actually executing a great brand and a great story, and then operating it. Because at the end of the day, a great idea doesn't mean anything unless you can actually execute on it.
Right.
Right. So it was at that point that I'm like, okay, I'm going to take all this. I believe I have what it takes to actually do something pretty amazing here. And I created Hostage Tape, which is now, it's the de facto mouth tape brand. When most people think of mouth tape, they think of us. Like we're the brand that comes to most people's mouth when they think of us.
So I have so many questions, both technical and, how you built this. I'll start with how you built this. So you had this moment, you found this tape, best night of sleep you ever had. You're like, there's something here. Mm-hmm. What was your first step to building the first, I guess, prototype of Hostage Tape?
So I went on and I'm like, okay, how do I find a manufacturer? What do I do? And I did what most people are starting to learn to do is go to Alibaba. Alibaba is a great place to go start with finding somebody who can be a supplier. And that was where I started. And then once I found a handful of suppliers, I started whittling down like who's the right supplier. And then I spent about 6 months with the supplier actually developing the product that people now know today is Hostage Tape. Because it wasn't just off the shelf, right? I took something and then we adapted it and we adjusted it, specifically like the adhesive, because the adhesive on the tape needed to be just right. It couldn't be too strong, but it couldn't be too weak. And then the tape itself needed to work great with facial hair. It needed to be comfortable. It needed to be safe, right? Needed to be hypoallergenic, but it needed to be strong because most of us guys, a lot of people who try mouth tape, the funny thing always happens. They'll go to Amazon and buy the cheap crap, something cheap, and then they'll go to bed and they wake up and it's gone. And they're like, where did it go? Right? It's because it just isn't very good tape, really rigid, not very strong. It's because it was designed by some drop shipper or some China manufacturer who knew they could make a bunch of this cheap crap stuff that they could just sell a
Right.
bunch of on Amazon, kind of a thing. You know,
Well, and it can't be too strong because then I imagine in the morning when you go to peel it off, you're taking all the skin off your lips with it.
well, exactly. That's exactly right. It can't be so
Yeah, that's not
strong that
comfortable.
you're giving yourself a wax in the morning.
Yeah,
So,
no, thank you. Well,
totally.
and I'd love to understand how you found an adhesive that fits on like a guy's beard because like I wear a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. It
Yeah.
looks like you might as well. I haven't been clean shaven in years.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how a piece of tape would stick overnight.
Because
So
I
that
kept
fascinates me.
trying. It was just trial and error. So I kept, without getting too technical, there's certain specifics on how strong an adhesive is. And so then we kept dialing back and going, okay, give me one that is this, 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 and this. And so then I kept testing different levels of it to then finally find the right one that was just right. Not too strong, not too weak. Because what I didn't
like
want to do
Goldilocks.
either was I didn't want to introduce too many SKUs where I had a extra strong SKU and like a regular SKU. Because that's another trap that for anybody listening you run into is you want to be careful creating a business that has too many SKUs. Because then you fall into the trap of too many SKUs makes it really hard to start and scale and get inventory. But then also you potentially you offer too many opportunity or too many choices. And sometimes too many choices slows down
Yeah.
somebody's ability to actually make a choice.
A confused shopper does not turn into a buyer.
Right. Exactly. So sometimes just
Yeah.
keep it simple, right? Like
Yeah.
focus in on your target, what you're trying to accomplish, who you're trying to serve, and just get really simple and just start there. And then you can adapt and learn and adjust as you go with it. So,
Okay, so you got yourself, you found the prototype. What did you do then? How did you go to market?
yeah. So in fact, it's funny story. So this is actually there's a picture here I'm holding up. This is the very first one, the very first tape or strip of hostage tape on top. This was one of the first no strip prototypes I made, but this is one of the first mouth tape ones. You'll notice it doesn't look uniform like the stuff we have now. The stuff we have now is, looks like this. It's perfectly symmetrical. Okay. And I'll never forget when I got that and I put it on and I showed my business partner, and he was, because he's the one who he does all the creative design in the business, and he created the design of the tape. And he goes, "Oh, dude, it looks great, but why do you have it on upside down?" And I went, "All right, first thing we just learned, it's got to be symmetrical, because then we reduce any confusion of somebody pulling it out going, wait, what's the top and what's the bottom?" So we made it symmetrical. So one of the first things I did was I created a 2-year P&L. And so this is something I would encourage everybody to do when you start a business. You got to know your numbers. I know everybody watches Shark Tank and they all say that. And you got to know your numbers. And so I always tell everybody starting out a new brand, new company, new idea, start with a 2-year P&L and you forecast out what everything looks like. Because then you can fully, truly understand how you get from point A to point B. It's kind of like, I equate it to, like, okay, my son's got a track meet later today. Okay. I don't know how to get to Wayzata High School. So I'm going to put it into Google Maps or into my Tesla, and my Tesla is going to tell me how to get there. Okay. A P&L is Google Maps. It tells me how to get from point A to point B. Right. Now, there might be times where I have to detour, I have to make adjustments. Maybe something's closed. Maybe there's traffic. Right. But at least Google Maps helps me get from point A to point B, and that's what your P&L does. And everybody should absolutely do that exercise of putting together a 2-year P&L. Then you can understand all your levers of how you're going to scale, how you're going to get revenue from zero to your first $1,000 a day, $5,000 a day, and so forth.
Okay. So you found your manufacturer, you're getting ready to go to market. What was this all self-funded? Was there a lot of startup costs involved, or like how much was your first order of product?
Yeah, I bootstrapped it. So my first startup, I sold it, and so I was vesting out the equity in the company that I sold to, and they raised a secondary, so I was able to sell, and I used cash from that sale of some of the equity to fund this,
Okay.
and so completely bootstrapped. I think my first order, I can't even remember. I know the first order that somebody placed was on March 4th, 2022, I believe, and almost three years ago to the month.
Wow. Yeah.
And the first batch was probably, I don't know, a couple $1,000 maybe,
Hmm.
5,000 some dollars, and it was actually wrong. So if there's any advice I would give people is, it's like my dad always taught me: measure twice, cut once, man. When you're putting
Yeah.
an order in, make sure every single detail is double checked and accounted for and you're communicating, because there was something that I just assumed, overlooked, didn't communicate. And the first batch came back wrong. So I had to try to sell the first batch of hostage tape that wasn't right. And then we sold through it. And then the second batch, what people know hostage tape is today, is actually was the second batch. So
Oh, okay. So how did you? I mean, you sound like you started an e-commerce store. You're selling online. What were your steps involved there? Did you just build a Shopify store, put it online, or did you go to friends and family first? Did you sell on social media? What did your first sales look like?
yeah, so again, where I really soaked up all the knowledge was I was listening to podcasts. And again, I'd recommend everybody go out there and pick some podcasts to listen to where you're listening to other people talk about this stuff. And so I was introduced to Shopify. So I went to Shopify. I'm like, all right, Shopify is the place to go. So I went there, got started, built. Now, this introduces the first big debate that some people might be thinking. Well, should I go to Amazon or should I go to Shopify? Or how should I think about that? This is what I would say, and what I did is, if you want to build a brand that lasts, don't start on Amazon. Build your brand first, sell on Shopify, then wait to launch on Amazon. Because what's going to
Hmm.
happen when you launch on Amazon, and if you think you've got something unique and different and interesting, like we did with the hostage tape, you're then subjecting yourself to so many people, so many copycatters who can see the idea and go, and they can find all the information, the supplier, everybody, and then they can jump in and they can beat you because you don't have anything at that point, right? You don't have a brand.
Right.
You don't go on to Amazon and win right out of the gate unless you have some sort of advantage that you can beat other people in. And so I launched Shopify first, and I waited at least a year before I launched on Amazon. And we built the brand, right? So then people were going to Amazon trying to find hostage tape. So then we knew, okay, there's plenty of demand that we're seeing on Amazon. Now we could release on Amazon. But then that's a whole nother story, because mouth tape's actually banned on Amazon. So
Really?
you can go to Amazon and find hostage tape or mouth tape, but it's actually banned. So that's a whole nother like ball of wax. So I would tell everybody, make sure if you're going to sell something on Amazon, it's actually allowed. Because the
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is like invest all your stock and inventory and money and time, and then you put it into FBA, and then you're selling, things are going great, and then all of a sudden you get that email that says your listing has been removed because it violates Amazon policy, and you're like,
Mm.
your whole life
Yeah.
disappears because you're like, Amazon just blew it away in an
Revenue.
instant, you know?
Revenue goes poof.
And that's what happened for a lot of people who, when we built what we built, we went on Amazon, and then Amazon changed the policy, and we were like, oh, that sucks. Well, oh well, like we're fine. But then there were other copycats who had tried. They just went to Amazon and they were wiped out, just like that.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Okay. So did your first website, how many SKUs do you guys have? You have the traditional, the mouth mouth strip and the
really
nose
simple.
strip.
So this is our primary SKU, our mouth tape. So this is hero SKU number 1. We later then came up with a pink version, right, for women, because believe it or not,
out there.
25%, 30% of our users are women. Now, I purposely, and this is a good lesson, when I launched Hostage Tape, I didn't launch it thinking, I got to hit everybody, because that's the wrong thing to do. Now, assuming your target market is big enough. Now, middle-aged 30 to 50-year-old men is a pretty big market. So I knew I'm good, okay? But I purposely went, all right, I'm going after 30 to 50-year-old men, especially men with facial hair. And whether women are attracted to the brand or not, I don't care. I know they will be, but I'm not marketing to them. I'm going after that demographic of guy that's my age, that's like you and me. Okay? Mm-hmm. Most of them are dads, their husbands, their fathers. They work a job. They don't get good sleep. They've got a beard. They've got a mustache, whatever, and they don't know what to do. Or their wife is like, man, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't sleep in the same bed as my husband. And so get focused, go after a target niche. And then once you build the brand, you could expand from there. If all of a sudden you see somebody else is attracted to the brand or another demographic is buying from you. And that's what we saw. So then we opened it up to women after that. And then we've got a no strip SKU that we added to it.
Okay.
So this is another good lesson. What we learned was a lot of people would buy Hostage Tape and say, well, I've got a deviated septum. I don't know if I want to wear mouth tape, and it kind of makes me nervous. So I went, okay, how do I increase AOV? How do I increase LTV? Well, let's add a complementary SKU. So we added a nose strip, which is, it opens up the nose. It's a perfect complement to our mouth tape, right? Breathe Right strip is obviously what most people know and are used to, and remembering Jerry Rice wearing a nose strip back in the 80s and 90s, right? And I looked at that and I went, okay, we'll just do that, but we're going to make it look cool. Again, I'm going to use branding and say, I'm going to take a Breathe Right strip, I'm going to make it look badass, so it doesn't look like a Band-Aid on your face. And we make it an add-on. So when people go and they add Hostage Tape to their cart, then something pops up and says, hey, you want to add on some nose strips too? Right? Now I'm increasing AOV. I'm increasing the amount of money I can collect, because CAC, right? Cost of acquisition, is only getting higher, only getting more expensive. So.
Right. How did you decide on pricing?
Yeah. So I'll say this was a mistake that I made, that if I would tell everybody out there listening, what you can't do is go, you know what? I think I want to price it here. Can't do that. You have to reverse engineer your price. So you have to think, okay, where am I going to sell this? How am I going to market this? So if you're thinking, all right, I'm going to use Meta, I'm going to use Facebook and Instagram. Great. You go there and then you research, okay, what are products maybe that are sort of in the similar area of mine? And you go find out what's their CPA, what is their CAC. Find out what that number is. Let's just say it's $20. Then you reverse engineer the price that you need to have on your product or a bundle or whatever offer it is you have to be able to actually be profitable and actually have a business. That was the mistake that I didn't fully understand. And fortunately, I wasn't doing Facebook ads prior to iOS 14. So I never knew what that was like. And I learned how to do Facebook ads myself. I'd never done Facebook ads. And I would tell everybody out there listening, regardless of what you think, learn how to do Facebook ads. It's one of the most valuable skills as a business owner that you can learn how to do. Do not just think, oh, I'm just going to hire an agency and not learn anything about it. You should whether you actually do it or not, you still should have a really good fundamental understanding of how to run Facebook ads. So if you hire an agency, you know what the hell is going on. You understand what they're doing. You understand how to have a conversation with them. So you know that they're doing a great job, right? But everybody should know how to do that. And so I learned it entirely myself. And then I didn't understand the CAC at the time. So the whole first year, our Facebook ads were terrible. I mean, we were trying to find what ads worked. Again, the first guy through the wall is always the bloodiest. And we were the first company through the wall that was actually marketing mouth tape. So you can imagine what that was like, and let alone hostage tape. So the amount of flack we got for that. But it was finding the right things that worked. But then it was understanding like, okay, I can't just try to have an offer for a 1 month supply and then expect I'm going to be profitable and I'm going to be able to last. Now, fortunately, we have an LTV product. So for anybody listening, when I say LTV, it means lifetime value. And I've got a consumable product that people are wearing every night. So I'm really fortunate in the fact that somebody's going to buy hostage tape, and assuming they have a great experience, they're going to keep buying it for however long. I mean, they could be with us for 10 years. Okay. So that's the great thing about my business is I know we have LTV. Not everybody has that. For a lot of people out there, you're just selling one thing. You're selling a Ridge wallet, you know, what Sean sells. You sell one thing, and he's got to figure out how does he sell more people, more stuff. So he adds in new SKUs of new products that he's trying to give people. I don't have that problem. So yes, I have the ability to not be as profitable on the first order, but I wouldn't recommend people go into launching a business thinking I can lose money on the first order. I'll be profitable because I've got LTV. Right. I wouldn't go into it that way. And so the way that we got around it was by bundling. So the whole first year, our AOV was like $20, $25, which was not profitable at all. But then I realized, all right, I need to be bundling. So rather than say, here, you buy a month and then you subscribe for $20 a month, I said, how about buy two, get one free for $49.99? And that was what then really catapulted us into the direction we headed into. Because now I was raising my AOV from $20, $25. I was doubling it up to $50. And then on top of it, I was using flows in the background to say, let's say you added a buy two, get one free. And then you go to checkout. I'm going to say, oh, hey, guess what? Add on two more for $29. So now I increase my AOV from $50 to $70, right? And so don't feel guilty about that. The more offers, the more stuff you can throw at people, always take that opportunity to try to increase AOV, give people more value if you can as you go through it. And it was finding those levers that then got us to where we are today.
Okay, so you led into my next question. Are you guys a subscription model?
We do have subscription, but believe it or not, man, people are subscribed out. There's too many subscriptions out there. And so feedback that we heard was, man, I don't want to subscribe. If I want to buy like 6 months, I just want to buy like 6 months and I'll come back.
Yeah.
So I went, okay, let's adjust here. Let's adjust and not primarily try to drive people to a subscription, because there was also another caveat to that. Was if I'm shipping one of these a month, okay, this is an advanced operational way to think about something. So if I'm shipping one of these a month, shipping isn't cheap. You know, it's going to cost you, if you're using a 3PL, which we are, and you're not shipping it yourself. I mean, if you want to get to any kind of a scale, you can't do this stuff on your own. And so highly recommend doing 3PLs if you're trying to get to some sort of scale. And if whatever 3PL you're using, your minimum shipping on an item is going to be anywhere from $5 to $7 an item, period. Like that's the minimum. Okay.
Dang.
So shipping one of these, knowing my shipping is going to be $5 to $7, I went, okay, maybe I shouldn't be shipping every month. What if I shipped every quarter? Because shipping one versus shipping three, guess what? It's the same price. If I ship three of these, so for us, the product is small enough that it still fits under this threshold of shipping that I can ship three for the same price as shipping one. So then that unlocked this other level of profitability for us, which then got me even farther away from a subscription model. And I went, you know what? Yes, we have a subscription. People can subscribe, but we find that more people just want to buy bulk. And so we push these bundles of, here, get this 3-month supply, or get this 6-month supply, or get this year supply. And we do all these combination of bundles, right, to get our AOV up. Because at the end of the day, again, for me, I know that if people are using this product, they're using it every night. It's a part of one of the most intimate times. So I've got them. I'm not necessarily as concerned about getting them back and getting them hooked on a subscription because they're using it every night. They're going to come back and continue to buy a bulk, order. And we send a ton of email. So,
yeah. Okay. Well, you're reading my mind because you bounced in my next question of what are you guys doing right now to maintain always reaching new customers? Sounds like Facebook, Meta ads, those kind of been your top dog, but you mentioned email. I know how important being in the marketing world, I know how important email is, especially in the e-com and product space. Tell us what you're doing these days with outbound, with Facebook advertising and then with email.
Yeah. So my channel mix is, so for new customer, so, you think about it in 2 buckets. You've got your new customer and you've got your retention.
Mm-hmm.
So my new customer, I'm spending most of my money on Meta, okay, Facebook and Instagram. And then my next lowest is Google, right? And for everybody listening out there, yes, those are primarily new customers, but they're also 2 different channels, right? Meta and Instagram might be much more, I'm generating interest in people, whereas Google it's intent-based. People are actually going to Google. They're looking for mouth tape. They're
ready to buy
for hostage tape, and I'm capturing that intent. So both new, but also 2 different marketing. What I'm capturing there, and then I've got a few other things I'm doing too. Like we're doing some app loving. We're doing some Taboola, right? Some native ads. We're doing some TV ads, things like that. Now, I wouldn't recommend most people do that. Most people don't need that stuff. Most people listening to this, if you're fairly new and not 8-9 figures, you're fine just doing Meta, right? You're fine doing Meta and a little bit of Google. Like that's probably all you need. Okay. But you absolutely got to have email. Okay. Now, email then is our retention play, primarily retention, where there's your automated flows that you have all set up, right? So when people come in and they become a customer, right? Or if they go to the website, we've got a pop-up that pops up and it captures their email, their phone number. And then you have a welcome flow. And then this is your chance to build the story with people, right? Build the connection with people. And I fall on the side of you can never email enough. I'm that guy. Okay. Nice. Now, granted, we're an 8-figure brand. We'll be a 9-figure brand in another year or 2. So we're at a size where I can get away with sending an email a day, and that's fine. Most early stage brands can't do that, but I would tell people, don't feel guilty and don't be afraid to send more email than less email. You're better off sending more than not enough.
Yeah. They'll forget about you if you don't send enough. Plain
exactly. Yeah. And you got to remember too, it's like a lot of founders, they think, well, but I sent the email. It's like, yeah, but dude, most people aren't looking at it, right? They got so much other crap going on that they got to go to their kid's baseball game or track meet or whatever it is, and they just missed it, right? And so
Yep.
the power of using email and continually sending the same messages, meaning, and this is what I mean by that. It doesn't mean sending the same email, but what's underutilized and undervalued is this idea that, like, at Hostage Tape, we're the biggest mouth tape brand in the world. Okay. You know how many people still don't know that, though? A lot of people still don't know that. So I'm not going to stop saying that. I'm going to continue to say that. I'm going to continue to push that message. I'm going to continue to tell people. So you got to find what your message is, and you got to keep saying it. Keep saying it, and you keep saying it, and you keep saying it. And when you think you've said it too many times, you keep saying it again. Because people forget it. They don't hear it, right? Your brand is not the thing they're thinking of. They're thinking of themselves and their own life. So you can never say your message, your core message and value of what you're trying to sell or do. You can never say it enough.
And if they enjoy your product, or at least your marketing, but they're probably former buyers or current buyers of your product, I know this just as a consumer, the brands that go out of their way to stay in contact with me, and not in a horrible, like, HTML overflow, no value, sale type of stuff. The people that go out of their way to stay in contact with me in a valuable way, I continually buy from them because I enjoy what they send me, whether it's, whether they're having a sale or it's just a reminder like, hey, you're like, there's a supplement brand I use. You're due for your next one. Are you in or out?
Yep.
And it's like a simple email. I'm like, oh, yep, there's a link, and I buy another one. Like, it's such an important part of it. And I think you're right. There's a ton of business owners, a ton of brand owners who think that, oh, we should maybe just once a week. We don't want to be annoying.
We don't want to
It's
bother them. Like, you're not bothering them. You're really not.
You're not bothering
them.
If they're a buyer, you should talk to them.
And you're going to get the emails that say, you're emailing me too much. Like, just ignore it. You're always going to have those Karens of the internet that say stuff.
Yep.
Right. That's just par for the course. So
right.
it is.
And if it bugs them, they're not an ideal buyer. Let them walk. You're gonna fill that one buyer with another 7 who are going to be lifelong fans.
Yeah.
So.
And when it comes to email, the other thing that we try to do with what you just said is we try to do a couple of different things. We try to either add value, like we might send an email that has value in there to people that is giving them, like, here are 3 reasons why maybe you're not getting very good sleep. That maybe you didn't think about, right? Or we're trying to be funny and entertaining, and we're telling a story. So there's a lot of people who are in our email flow, our emails. They love our emails because we're always telling stories, or we're trying to be funny or entertaining, and just tell stories, right? Tell stories, be funny, use memes. Memes are underused. People love memes.
I'm
funny
a big meme guy.
Images,
Well, it's the human brain craves knowledge. It wants to be informed, and it craves entertainment. Entertainment, comedy, something, whether it's a story or a joke or a meme, it loves that. And if it happens to be selling a product, the more the merrier. I think, who was it? Howard Gossage said, people love reading material, but sometimes or good material. I can't remember what it is. I'm butchering it to death, but sometimes that happens to be an ad. And if that's your ad that you wrote, and people enjoy it for the entertainment value or for the knowledge value, now you've got people right where you want them, because you're providing value and they're going to buy from you.
I like to tell people this. A good way to think about it is, think about what your target demographic likes to look at and watch and consume. What are they? And just take your brand out of it. Take what you're trying to sell out of the equation and say, what are they going on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or wherever they're consuming stuff? What are they looking at? What do they enjoy looking at and watching? And then that's where you can get ideas of stuff that you can put in your email, stories you can tell, content you can make, all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Alex, we could keep going for a while here. You're so full of knowledge and value, and I really appreciate how much you've shared with us here. But you're a busy man. I got to get you moving on down the road. I want to make sure that anybody out there listening today, can go check out Hostage Tape. But if they want to learn more from you, about you, or connect with you, what are the best ways to do that?
Yeah. So if you want to get the best sleep of your life, okay, go to hostagetape.com. Yes, you can find us on Amazon, but you're better off just going to Hostage Tape. You'll find better bundles and all that stuff there. Okay. And if you want to see anything that I put out, we have our Hostage Tape handled on social, but I do have Alex Neist on LinkedIn and some personal accounts that I do post on as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, Alex, man, thank you so much for joining us today. This was just tons of value and knowledge, and I'm sure listeners are bound to greatly benefit from it. So thank you again for joining us.
Great to be here, man. And remember, folks, shut your mouth and change your life.
I love it. There you go.